Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome into the Steelers Sunday night Q&A. And what a Sunday night it is. It is the first Sunday night where we can say that the Pittsburgh Steelers are locked in to another game, this time in the playoffs. It is Steelers locking up a playoff spot after winning on Saturday and a Jacksonville Jaguars surprising loss to the Tennessee Titans on Sunday afternoon. We didn't even have to stay up late, Steelers fans, but you're here. We're glad you're here. And I'm here, Jeremy Betts, joined by my guy, Brian Anthony Davis. Bad. It's been a good weekend. How are you tonight?
Yeah, it's been fantastic with the exception of an injury to TJ Watt. But,
Yes.
that's still with the fortunes on the scoreboard and getting the Steelers into the playoffs. The only thing that anybody can be upset about is if you wanted the Pittsburgh Steelers to be on Hard Knocks next year. It can't happen because they're not out of the playoffs for 2 years in a row. But if that's the worst thing that happens, it is going to be a great freaking week.
It absolutely is. And we don't know at this point when the Steelers are going to play or who they're going to play, because that will be determined with Sunday Night Football. So many of you probably will be staying up late just out of curiosity to see how it all plays out. But the Steelers are in, baby, and that is all that matters. Brian, you did talk about the TJ Watt injury and how big that is. It's a tough loss, obviously, for this team. But I think we'll probably get into it later when we're talking about it. But just kind of give me your thoughts about the team real quick, just in brief, before we start answering some questions. Tell me your thoughts about this team compared to maybe some of their more recent playoff appearances. How do you feel about their chances this year?
Well, it's definitely different. And because you don't have Ben Roethlisberger in there. And Ben Roethlisberger would have given you great experience, a winner. I mean, the guy who knows how to win Super Bowls, knows how to navigate through the playoffs. But it's also not on the positive side, though, too, would be if you did it with not having Ben, is the fact that you have a team that is more united. There's not one single veteran besides Chris Boswell and Cam Hayward that have won a playoff game with this team. So there's not one saying, well, back in my day, this is how we did it. So that's kind of a good thing. They're more of a fresh team. They're very united. They do. This is not a team that plays down to competition as much. And I know you can go back and say that, well, hey, wait, they lost to two win teams back in December, but that's different because you were dealing with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback when that happened. So this team seems united. They seem hungry. I'm excited about the prospects. I don't think they're going to get blown out in the playoffs. I'm not saying that they're advancing after the first week, but I think they've got very good odds that they can.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really do. And I think that it doesn't necessarily matter who they go play because the AFC is flawed just all the way through, outside of maybe Baltimore. And that is the team that the Steelers have the most familiarity with out of any of the teams in the postseason here, except maybe Cleveland. So you've definitely got a shot. If you can win game one somehow, you're going to Baltimore. I mean, that's probably how it goes, unless you get that 6th seed and somehow the 7, which would be Buffalo, I guess, if they lose, unless they somehow win a game and end up going to Baltimore. But it's very likely that would be your second matchup. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves, obviously, right? We've got a lot to do in the meantime. Let's go ahead and talk or answer some questions.
I like that. So can I jump in on that? Because we were talking about this at the end of we had a post-game show, an impromptu post-game show today when the Steelers did clinch, and it was Jeff Hartman, it was Dave Schofield, and myself. And one thing that we talked about at the end is if you go ahead and get that 6th seed, that means that Buffalo is the 7th seed, and that Buffalo would be one of the most dangerous 7th seeds I've ever seen. They would be more of a dangerous 7th seed than Pittsburgh would be. Which means that if both the 6 and the 7 in that case advances, that would mean that Pittsburgh would be playing the winner of Cleveland and the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Buffalo would be going to Baltimore.
Mm,
So that's an easier road that way. And
yeah.
when you look at the Chiefs right now, the Chiefs are they're a team that won the Super Bowl last year, but they do not look like a team that is poised to repeat.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you there 100%. They always, you got Patrick Mahomes, you have a chance, right? I mean, that's the kind of team they're going to be. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, that counts for a lot. That's like, don't let Belichick and Brady in the playoffs. They're going to do something. You know what I mean? So that is the thing to watch here. But hey, good stuff from Dave here saying Steelers were 5-3 this season against teams who made the playoffs. That's a good record. That's very good. And two of those losses, two of those losses are to the teams that they're playing or that are playing each other in the first round in Cleveland and Houston. So one of those teams will get eliminated, and you've got things to watch for. You got things to anticipate here. So we can play the what if game all we want to. That's part of what this show is about. As the Steelers Q&A, let's get to some of these questions here. A fun one first from Afton Fored, one of our regular listeners. Thanks for tuning in, Afton. Did you enjoy the Steelers tweet about the terrible towel karma as much as I did? Brian, I don't know if you saw the Steelers official tweet from their official account about it, but it was the epic trolling that the Steelers are known to do recently on their social media, and really just a fun, lighthearted, but also don't mess with our terrible towel tweet that we're used to seeing. Good stuff.
What was it? When will Yins learn? Was that what it
When will
was?
Yins learn? That's what it was. Yep.
Well, absolutely. That's classic. Also, they showed some karma from December 6th or something from Jacksonville's Twitter feed that said,
Mm,
get your playoff tickets now. Buy your
yes. Oh man, that is the worst situation for the Jacksonville Jaguars social media team right there to have to figure out how to take that one down gracefully. Not fun. Here's another question. This one from another regular listener, Vinny Aguakun. Do you guys think they should start Minka and Rowe as the two safeties and then have KZ as the third safety? That is a good problem to have. I heard you guys talking on the emergency post game, if you will, breaking news podcast today, talking about the safety situation and how really with Eric Rowe playing so well, it creates kind of a good problem for Pittsburgh. I think he's been playing too well to take him off the field for a guy who hasn't played for 3 weeks. Now, will you rotate those guys regularly? Yes, absolutely. But the way Eric Rowe has been playing, he has been a plus addition for this team and not just a fill-in type of guy that you would expect from a guy you pull off the couch. So I like this actually from Vinny. Start Minka and Rowe, and then move KZ in sub package football, get him rolled out slowly this time around, and see what he can bring to the table. He's going to be a little bit more fresh, obviously, but I think that this is a really set up by Vinny here as a good formula. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, and there's a possibility that Trenton Thompson comes back too. And you really
Yep.
want to give Rowe priority over Trenton Thompson. Now, another thing to remember here, because there are a lot of safeties, Pat Peterson will need it back
Yep.
to cornerback. In this situation, this is something we discussed on the post-game show as well, because you would probably he's the safety of the future. I get that. When I say of the future, he's an old man, but in
Right.
2024, he would come to camp as a safety. Let's put it that way. But what I want to say about all of this is for the playoffs, you probably want him back in that spot if you're getting Minka and KZ back, and that would bolster. It's definitely going to bolster your corners by moving him back there.
Yeah. Yeah, it would for sure. And that way everybody moves down a rung on the ladder, right? Levi Wallace moves down a rung, and James Pierre moves down a rung. That can only help you in the long run and in any game that you would face. I kind of like what we're seeing from the Steelers secondary, how they've kind of come together despite having so many moving pieces and missing pieces in and out of the lineup. It's been very impressive to watch. And you've got to credit Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin, whose roots are in the secondary as well, for really saving face back there when it could have gotten really, really dark for this team, and looked like it was going that route. Saved the day by guys like Eric Rowe and Patrick Peterson with his versatility. But now you've got the versatility to move him back. That should help you out a lot as well. Let's pull up a question here from Captain Underpants. 2 questions, one each. Jeremy, do I get an invite for a second season in fantasy? We'll talk about it, Captain Underpants. We'll talk about it. We love to have you back for sure. And we may have to expand this year as well, with as many requests as we have gotten. So we will keep you in the loop about that. And
Especially since you kicked me out.
yeah, we did kick
Send
you
me an
out.
invite this year.
We
And I
got you
won
a
your league.
little late in. Oh man. Well, we do apologize about that. Andrew and I will come seeking forgiveness somehow this offseason. Guaranteed. Brian, and then he's got a question for you as well. If we go to KC, do you like our odds? We've talked about it. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? It's am I going to go ahead and pick the Steelers? I'm not going to say that I am, and the only reason that is because there's some superstition involved when I do pick the Steelers. I actually ended up picking them this week, so that's fine. But I do like the odds. There's something about KC that worries me though, and it's the fact that they do have that championship mojo, and it always
Yeah.
seems to be at the end they figure it out. But I followed, man, that Christmas Day game. I watched all of it, and they were not right in that game.
Right.
Now, did they win by 1 point today? You can't count that when Mahomes is sitting and all these other guys are sitting, and you have a new running back on the team because Pacheco's sitting. So I kind of like the fact that they won today. I wanted the Chiefs to win, and I think somebody mentioned earlier that it seems that Kelsey's head is somewhere else. It seems like there's no receivers there as well. And it's after a while, you see this, and you saw this with the 70s Steelers, you win 2, and then even though you've got a very good team, it gets harder and harder to repeat because once you get bigger, once you're on top of that mountain, it's so much easier to get knocked off than to stay on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It really is. And we'll see how it all plays out. But obviously, you've got a team in Pittsburgh who they're going to be so excited to be here in these playoffs. They're going to obviously play extremely hard. And one thing that we haven't really gotten yet from the questions here, Brian, that I wanted to talk about specifically, is in regards to TJ Watt. And we saw a couple years ago, right, when TJ goes down, the struggles that the team had for 8 games, where then they were crawling from a 4-game, 5-game in the hole deficit to try to find a way to get to 9-8, which they did in 2022. But it wasn't great. But that's with TJ Watt missing time and not a lot behind him. That's different this year. Marcus Golden and everybody's favorite defensive rookie right now, Nick Herbig, playing pretty good football. Is this Steelers team built this year to better withstand a TJ Watt injury in a moment like this, or is this going to be an issue for them that they can't overcome? What do you think?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. So let me start with this. TJ Watt is irreplaceable. There is no saying that you're fine without him because you have very good players in Marcus Golden and Nick Herbig. But you could also say, though, that they are the best bets to go
Yeah.
ahead. They're probably deeper at 3 and 4 than any other team in the league at outside linebacker. So I would probably say if we don't know other teams' 3s and 4s, but
Yeah.
this 3 and 4 is pretty darn good. One of them helped clinch a game for you last week in Nick Herbig. They both have more than 3 sacks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Golden and I don't know the exact number, but I think it might be 3 for each. So these guys come after it. This is not the Anthony Chickalo days.
Yeah.
This is not, these aren't the days where you have nobody there to go ahead and fill in. The best number 3 that they've had in a long time was probably a guy that went AWOL, and then the other guy would have been Arthur Moats, who was
Yeah.
in between.
Yeah.
He played both inside and outside. And Arthur Moats was good, but this is an upgrade, and this is the best they've ever been. You want TJ Watt in that game,
Yes.
but if you're not going to have him, I like the fact that they have these two gentlemen, number 44 and number 51, than where they would have had guys before.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think Marcus Golden and Nick Herbig have plenty of juice to give. I really do. And they might not get the quick sacks and impact the game from multiple angles like TJ Watt can, but they can hold down one side of the football. And then you just need Alex Highsmith to step up his game and be the superstar that they paid him to be, opposite Watt, and really take over. I think he can do that. I think the Steelers do have a shot to hold down the fort if TJ Watt does have to miss this game, and it's looking like he will. There was a question here from Alexis B. Do you think TJ Watt puts on a brace to play? I think that's what he's going to want to do. That's what he's going to try to do, but I don't think the Steelers are going to let him do that. I don't think that's wise for your moving forward fortunes, but this is playoffs, so the mindset may be a little different. Brian, I don't know. What do you think about this? Do you think if there's any chance that he's out there, or is this just they're going to shut him down?
They're going to shut him down
Yeah.
for this week. If there's
Okay.
another
Yeah.
week, then there's a discussion. And remember, there's a possibility, and we don't know this yet. There's a possibility that this game is not played until Monday night.
Yeah.
I'm not, I can't guarantee it, but I could almost come close to guaranteeing that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to ruin one of your weekdays at work next week, not because of losing, but they're going to seriously hamper it because they are going to get a primetime game. I am almost certain of it that you will see this team in primetime. So, with that being said, JJ Watt has a better chance of playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week than TJ Watt does.
Yeah.
And JJ's not coming.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that sentiment 100%. All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break on the audio side here. If you're joining us live, we're obviously not going anywhere. We're going to be right back after this short break and a word from our sponsors. Don't go anywhere. The Steelers Q&A. We'll be right back. And we are back here on the Steelers Q&A. It's Jeremy Betts. It's Brian Anthony Davis here talking Steelers in the playoffs and answering your questions. Brian, let's jump right into some more questions. We've talked a little bit about Kansas City and what to expect if the Steelers have to play KC, and do they have a chance? How about if we play the Bills, though? Because that's the other scenario here that by the time some people will be listening to this will have already been decided. But at this point, Sunday Night Football just getting underway. We do not know how that's going to play out. If the Steelers do have to travel up to Orchard Park and play Buffalo, let's mention this: 32 degrees, maybe some snow. That is in the forecast for that game right now. At least the day before, there's going to be some snow for sure. So this is a cold weather game in Orchard Park. The Steelers have a young cornerback that has been playing really good football, and he's been shadowing every team's best receiver. He's been asking to do that. The Steelers have allowed him to do that. That would mean it's Joey Porter Jr. versus Stephon Diggs against Buffalo. Do you see the Steelers continuing this trend of traveling if that's the matchup there? And how do you think that JPJ could fare against an all-world wide receiver like Stephon Diggs? This question from Vinny Aguakun.
I would think it would be a 50-50 matchup. And if you go ahead and give Diggs the advantage here, then it's probably 53-47. I think it's a lot closer now. Diggs is all pro. This
Yeah.
guy's a rookie. I get
Yeah.
it. But he was brought in to be a lockdown guy. Look at the guys in the Pro Bowl right now. Patrick Surtain II. Also, Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
These guys that are coming in here, they're second-year players, second or third-year players, I believe. Surtain might be a third-year player, but Sauce is a second. So these are young guys that are locking it down. I'm not saying that Joey is your lockdown corner, but it's the closest the Pittsburgh Steelers have had in a long time to a lockdown corner. So yes, you got to keep it going, Jeremy.
Yeah, you do. It's been what's working, and they need to keep it up. Absolutely. Let's keep talking more generically now about the Steelers here with a question from Alex Mahoney. Do you think Mason has a short leash if he doesn't play well in the playoffs? I'm going to go ahead and say yes, that he should have a short leash because this needs to be a hot hand type situation for the Steelers. I don't think you're married to any one quarterback in these playoffs or however it goes. But also, if after the first quarter the Steelers have no points and Mason Rudolph hasn't been doing much, I don't think you bench him. I think the short leash will come into play as if he starts spraying interceptions all of a sudden or taking strip sacks and the game is starting to fall away from them. But not saying that the leash won't be short, but he would have to really mess up for that to happen. What do you think, Brian, about this?
Let's talk about baseball a second. If it's game 7 and you lose, you go home. That's what this is. We've seen Cy Young winners get pulled after 2 or 3 innings in a game 7 because there's no turning back. We have seen Cy Young award-winning pitchers also come in out of the bullpen and being starters, coming in to save that season. Now, I just said basically I didn't say it, but I was alluding to the fact with TJ Watt, you don't want to kill this guy's career by rushing him back early because of injury. You don't want to bring him in for that reason. But at quarterback, it's a little different because, look, as much as you all want to talk about it and the media wants to talk about it, I'm not talking about 2024. I'm not talking about who the starter is. There's the potential that Kenny Pickett goes into camp next year as the number 1. And that's what's probably going to happen. But who cares about tomorrow? We're talking about tonight. And tonight is the 2023 season. Mason Rudolph's in there because he is the hot hand. If he's not hot, just like you said, you got to pull him. But here's the difference between football and baseball. You can't put that pitcher back in baseball.
Yeah.
You can put the pitcher back in football being your quarterback.
You sure can. And you play how it's playing out, right? You've got to be open-minded. Mike Tomlin, I think, will be that, but I do think he's going to announce that I do think he's going to announce that Mason Rudolph will be the starter. I don't think that there's much discussion in that regard to start the week. Now, how things play out in the game, that would be where the discussion keeps going. There's a lot of questions in here about the future with Mason Rudolph. Do we keep Mason here? Is a question from Mark Tobin. If he does well and wins a playoff game, that's a lot of speculation. And obviously what you talked about just now, you've got a young quarterback on a rookie contract here that hasn't really had the chance to show what he can do outside of a Matt Canada system, if you want to call it that. We've got an offensive coordinator set now with Sullivan and Faulkner, who are spinning off of Canada's system and putting their own twist on it a little bit, but still, the interim offensive coordinator thing, that's not what you would go into a season with. So the Steelers have some decisions to make. So does Mason Rudolph price himself out of Pittsburgh as a free agent this offseason if he wins a playoff game? I mean, that's a real possibility too when you consider all the injuries that there have been and the market for backup quarterbacks that will probably boom a little bit this year with the amount of injuries that starters have sustained this season. It may be more of, can the Steelers afford to keep Mason Rudolph as opposed to whether or not they want to keep Mason Rudolph. But how do you feel about this, Brian? Just real briefly before we get back to more playoff talk.
I think Mason Rudolph played his way back on this team in the Cincinnati game because we know, look,
yeah,
in that Colts game, Mitch Trubisky was fired. I mean, he was fired.
Yes, he was.
He's not coming back. And if he does, I would be completely shocked. I definitely expect them to bring somebody else in, but it's going to come down to dollars. But right now, I can tell you, Mason Rudolph seems like he is a priority for the Steelers to come in and keep as a backup. And if he's kept, he's going to be here as a number 2. So the reason I'm saying that is you got to think about it. The whole time, we've talked about this for years. Gardner Minshew is probably one of the best backup quarterbacks in the game.
Yeah.
Tyler Huntley is a pretty good backup quarterback. You've got a chance to win when those guys are in there. I have always said this, and people laugh at me when I say this. I think there should be a backup quarterback wing in the Hall of Fame. And the reason I say that is because the Broncos had Gary Kubiak for years. And when he came in, when Elway was down, Kubiak was good for them and helped out. Now, especially to help you win a game when a guy goes out in the middle of that game, or to win for 2 or 3 games in a row. You don't have a backup quarterback in to seize the job because your quarterback stinks. Maybe that's the situation that a lot of you think right now is happening. A lot of you think that he should be the number 1 next year. That's not the discussion. The fact is that he has a job on this team is if he wants to stay. And a lot of you will say, well, why would he want to stay? Because why wouldn't he? I mean, nobody else was seeking him out last year. Nobody gave him an offer. He came back to the Pittsburgh Steelers because nobody gave him one. So that's the same thing of everybody passing you up in round 1 of the NFL draft. That means everybody passes on you. And then they look like Joey Porter Jr. Everybody passed on him, including the Steelers. The only ones that did pass on him are ones that did not have a first-round pick. So what I'm saying there is with Mason Rudolph, he's probably going to want to stay in a situation that he's familiar with, and he's probably going to want to be the best backup he possibly can be. Because if you pull in Mason Rudolph to another team, you're not pulling him in to be your starter.
Right. No, he would be one of these high-end backups that makes 10, 11, 12 million a year is what my thought would be if he were to end up going somewhere else. But this is a Steelers team that likes the familiarity of players as much as maybe these players would as well. And so Mason coming back makes total sense for this team for next year. And, Kathy Fora makes a good point here. Don't give up on Pickett. Let's see what happens. That's what we got to do. You got to see what happens. Maybe you go into next year with Kenny's your starter, Mason's your backup, and then Kenny gets 3 or 4 weeks, and you figure out what you got with him with a new offensive coordinator, and then maybe Mason's kind of your backup plan there. That could be how it goes as well. But what you got, Brian?
Hey, I have no problem if there's a huge quarterback controversy. If this team goes to the AFC Championship game, goes to the Super Bowl, wins the Super Bowl, then let's have that conversation. And I have no problem having that conversation at that time. Then it's a valid conversation. Let's get through these playoffs first before we're worried about that. But to Mark's answer, yeah, you're bringing them back if you can next year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, hey, let's talk about this real quick here too from Mr. Stiller fan. I know it's crazy, he says, but play Mahomes at Arrowhead. Yes, cold weather for bad receivers like Mahomes is perfect for our defense. That's a good point, Brian. With all the drops that this Chiefs team has had this season, that cold weather could play a factor into that. I mean, the more things go here and the more talk that we were able to have, I'm probably leaning more towards wanting to go to play Kansas City than Buffalo at this point, and it's still early in the Buffalo Miami game, so we don't know how that's going to play out yet. But if the Steelers do end up going to Arrowhead, do you give the Steelers wide receiver group the advantage over what we've seen from Kansas City's receivers as far as being able to make the plays that are there?
Yeah, I think Mr. Miller fan, you're right on. These are very bad receivers. Now, blind squirrel can find a nut.
Yep.
Sun shines on a dog's butt every once in a while, sure, but this makes you crowd Travis Kelce even more. So this is kind of the more that I think about it. Now, when I was on the post game show today or the breaking news show, I was like, maybe we want to go to Buffalo. Maybe we want to go to. Maybe we want to see the Steelers in Kansas City. I just don't know. But the more than I'm reading live chats, the more that I'm thinking about it, I think KC is the better situation all the way around because this team looks nothing like this team. This team's not winning the Super Bowl last year against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah. No. No, they're not doing that. That's for sure. And the the difference is like ceilings here is what we're talking because I mean some of the floors are pretty similar here between Buffalo and Kansas City. They both can have bad games, but the ceiling just feels higher with Buffalo because of what Josh Allen can do on the ground and that defense plays really well. And the Chiefs have a really good defense too. Let's not discount that. How good the Chiefs defense has been this year. It will be very difficult for the Steelers to be able to do much against Kansas City. But as far as the other side of the football, the Steelers defense facing up against an offense, I would feel better about the KC offense and what they do on the outside. And Isaiah Pacheco doesn't scare me at running back either. The Chiefs offensive line is pretty good, but they're not well, they're actually a really good offensive line. But they don't scare you as much as Buffalo can right now. And so that's why I would be more inclined to say let's go to Kansas City and see what can happen there. But you just never know how it's gonna turn out for real in the real
Pacheco does
life.
scare me, actually.
Does
I
he?
think he does.
Okay.
Yeah, I will
Um.
say that.
Yeah. I mean, he's got an interesting skill set. He's very Jalen Warren like, right? I think that would be a good comparison. Both guys that can get on the edge and have some speed, but physical runners. Not willing to go down type of runners. The Steelers would have to bring their A game as far as tackling goes. But I think that they can do that and be okay in that type of situation. This question from Tom, I wanted to bring it up since he asked it from Tom Vallejo. Do you think without TJ Watt, we have a chance who takes his place? We talked about Marcus Golden. We talked about Nick Herbig, and that, we kind of feel, Brian, you and I together, that this team is a little bit better built to withstand a TJ Watt injury. And not that that is what you wanted to happen. Not that it's going to be better for the Steelers to be without TJ Watt by any means. But Tom, since you asked it, we went over that in the earlier portion of the show. Go check that out. We did come to that conclusion, though, that the Steelers are better off this year without TJ Watt than maybe they have been in the past with some of their other rotational rushers. But go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
Let me jump in. Dave put this in a little bit ago and we passed it up. We didn't get a chance. He said, don't forget that the Steelers brought in Jalen Smith, late of the Cowboys, late of the Raiders. as well to the practice squad just a couple of weeks ago. This is a
Yeah.
guy that is he more of a inside linebacker? Can he play out? I
Yeah.
mean, I think he's played a little bit of both. I can't. Please don't quote me on that. I'm completely sure, but that's an extra defender with fresh legs
Yeah.
right now too. When you saw Mike Tomlin going through the tunnel yesterday after the game, just repetitive off the couch, off the couch, off the couch.
Yep.
This isn't the off the couch that Sean Spence was in 2017 when Shazier went down. This is a different off the couch.
Yep. It would very much be. He though has like Pro Bowl pedigree, I believe. He just had I think some knee injuries. I think that's what really derailed his career in Dallas. And then the Raiders took a chance on him because of the pedigree and everything. That would be kind of what the Steelers are playing off of here if they were to give him a shot. But you guys talked about it in the breaking news show earlier today. They've still got to figure out a roster spot for Miles Jack if they want him to play in the playoffs, right? That's something that they're still gonna have to do. So they've got some shuffling to do on the defensive side.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting. This is where you've got to really this is like the judges on American Idol when they have all the faces and they're trying to figure out who goes where. If you've ever seen
Yeah,
that,
it is. It is.
I have a
Yep.
feeling this is what's going to be happening in that room.
That's hilarious. That's a fun thought for sure. Brian, I'm not seeing any here's a fun question kind of to wrap us up here a little bit. From Afton, will the team pay Najee and Jalen? I think they've earned it, but running backs are almost disposable in today's NFL. These kind of seem like glue guys to a point as well in the locker room. So I would say that they make a play for both of these guys this offseason. But Brian, is Jalen Warren's under contract one more year for the Steelers, or is he coming up on his free agency? I want to say he's got one more year.
I don't know how the undrafted free agent contract works. He could be an exclusive rights free agent,
Sure.
possibly. And Najee Harris, we know that this is his third season, so he's going into a fourth year, and then you're talking about a fifth-year option. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, and Afton, you're one of my favorites of all time, but I don't care this week. I don't care until hopefully February. Just like I don't care about who's starting, whether it's Mason or whether it's Kenny. And I know Mark mentioned, well, you got to talk about it now. We can't. You have to talk about either the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to know who we're going to be talking about even more. That's a decision. That's got to be a decision. That can't be a decision this week because that would be a major distraction if we're thinking about it.
Absolutely. And here on the Steel Curtain Network, we're going to be all in on this playoff run, however long it lasts for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dave Schofield helping answer our question here. He has one more year, and then he would be an exclusive rights free agent. That's kind of what I was thinking as well. I think and how the Steelers typically do contracts with unrestricted or with undrafted free agents, they probably let him play this out, and then they tender him or whatever they need to do to retain him after that if they decide that is the direction they want to go. So, but Brian, I think we've just about said it all for what we're talking about here with the Pittsburgh Steelers being in the playoffs and not knowing where they're going to be yet. Stay tuned. Steel Curtain Network will have that updated for you as soon as we know where the Steelers are going and when they're playing. You will hear it from us, and you can check that out on our social medias as well as on the steelcurtainnetwork.com and check that out. Brian, it's been a lot of fun. Any last thoughts for us before we head out of here?
No, I want to say, actually, I do have some final thoughts. I want to say this to the live chat. I love you. I think you're absolutely amazing, and we can't do these shows without you. If you're driving down the road and it's on Tuesday and you're listening to this because you listen on our audio only, we love you too. We appreciate you. You might not always agree with what I have to say. And guess what? I think that's fantastic, because the great part about being in this free country that we've been in, everybody has different opinions. One thing that you do that I absolutely love is the fact that you don't call me an idiot. You give me an
Yep.
opportunity to say, okay, I know this sounds crazy, but this is my thought. And I won't do that to you either. So thank you so much. Stay original. Always be true to yourself. And thank you for everything that you do for us. Because you know what? You drive us. You
Yep.
give we're no different than you. We're just blessed to have this platform. We weaseled our way into this platform somehow, and we have it. And we thank you so much, and we represent you as fans. We are part of the Fans First Network, and we are never going to forget what Fans First is all about. So thank you so much. But speaking of Fans First Network, there's shows that are audio only. You got to check those out. You can't get The Fix with Jeremy Betts and Andrew Wilbar here. You can't get Here
Yep.
We Go, the Steelers show on YouTube with Coach Kevin Smith. And if you don't know much about Coach Kevin Smith, the guy is a
Got to.
clinic every time he opens his mouth. I'm on
Got to
that
check it out.
show. I'm on that show, and I should not get top billing. I'm only 2% of that show because I ask questions to Kevin. That's the only reason I'm on that show. He's that darn good. So check out these shows. Check out Let's Ride Tomorrow. Jeff Hartman is, my gosh, I don't know why that guy's not on ESPN. I don't know why he doesn't have a national job, and I should not open my mouth right now because maybe they'll come and snag him, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is thank you. We are going to keep bringing it to you as fans, but without you all, we don't have this platform. So God bless you.
Absolutely. Can't do it without you. I appreciate all of you welcoming me this season to the Q&A as well. My first live show, a series that I've been doing for the Steel Curtain Network. It's been a lot of fun, and love having guys like Brian on, like Shannon and Andrew, and all the different guys that have hopped on with me this season. We've got another game, Steeler Nation, and it is going to be a good one. So with that, Brian, anything else to add here? Looks like you maybe got
Jeremy, as the podcast producer, I have just renewed your contract. So
hey, let's go.
look that
Right on.
look that by fax or by Hogwarts owl coming to you soon.
Sounds great. I'll have to make sure that I am receiving owl notifications. I don't know how that works yet. Talk to my wife about that one. All
Open
right.
the
Hey,
window,
that's going to do it. Right on. Right on. That's going to do it for us here on the Steelers Q&A. We appreciate each and every one of you, and thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Go Steelers.